We all know all the Final Destination movies have a set template. At the start of the movie, we get a group of friends. One of them he or she gets a premonition. In that premonition, everyone dies, and then he or she somehow saves everyone. And then throughout the movie, we only see that all the people that were saved die one by one in the order of their death, and that's the whole template of the Final Destination movie. Now, this movie, Final Destination Bloodlines, follows the same template, but they very cleverly have spread this template across 3 generations, and that is a very, very clever way to tell a story in the same format but also make it feel very different and in a very creative way. So at the start of the movie, we see a Sky Tower restaurant, which is literally in the sky and which is literally in a tower. It is a newly opened restaurant, and visiting it is Iris and her boyfriend Paul. Now let me talk about the timeline of the event, because we all want to know that when was the first premonition that started this events of death, this fight against death. When was that first premonition ever to occur in human history? Now we don't know when the first event occurs, but we do know when the first event occurs in the timeline of these movies, in the timeline of the Final Destination movies, and that is right here, about 50 years ago from current timeline. And then of course the usual thing happens, which happens at the start of the all Final Destination movies. One of the characters gets a premonition. Here we have Iris gets a premonition, everyone dies, and then somehow she saves everyone. But here 3 important things happen. Number 1, she saves literally hundreds of people, and that's why it takes death a lot of time to get past everyone that was spared that day, and in this case it takes years, in fact 3 generations. The second important thing happens with the coin that caused the accident in the first place comes back beautifully in the movie, and I want to elaborate on this thing, so we'll talk about this at the end of the video. And if you're a fan of movies and movie making and all those things, you will definitely appreciate what they did with the coin here. Number 3, and this is the most important thing here, Iris was the second last person to die, and she saves a kid, a small little kid who was the last person to die. And this is going to be pretty important, so stick around for the end of the video to understand the importance of this very moment. Now the premonition of Iris ends, but we realize that this was actually a dream that was had by the granddaughter of Iris named as Steph. Now Stephanie or Steph have been having these nightmares for the past couple of months, and therefore her roommate suggests her to go and visit her family. Therefore she goes home, she visits her home, and everyone actually tells her that Iris was a crazy lady and do not meet her. She literally destroyed her family. But Steph doesn't really care about it. Steph goes on to meet Iris, and then Iris tells her the truth about that premonition and how death is coming after them. Of course, Steph doesn't believe it. Therefore, Iris sacrifices herself and gives Steph the book, which literally explains everything. Now, here's a very important thing. You might think, why did Iris sacrifice herself? Well, the answer is pretty simple. She was going to die eventually because she was dealing with cancer, and she was literally going to die anytime. So she just sacrifices herself and gives the book to Steph and tells her to just save everyone. Now, of course, no one believes Steph, but then Uncle Howard dies. And after Uncle Howard dies, Steph makes everyone sit and explains everything that has been happening throughout the years. She explains about the sky dance, about how hundreds of people were saved, and how now death is coming after the family only because, now this is very important, now death is coming after the family only because they share the bloodline of Iris, and Iris was the second last person to die. And from all the Final Destination movies, we all know that death takes its time to deal with everyone, because death takes their life in a chronological order. That means in the order in which they were supposed to die earlier. And since Iris was the second last person to die, her bloodline has the most of the life. And now there's very interesting thing that happens here as well. Now this is where we can assume that all the events that we have seen in all the 5 Final Destination movies, now all of the people who had those premonitions and who cheated death in some way were all present at the Sky Dance Tower that night. That means all the characters that we saw die may share a bloodline with the people that were supposed to die at the Sky Dance Tower, which was saved by, of course, Iris. And then, of course, again, no one believes her, and Eric is the next one to die in the bloodline. But Eric somehow escapes, and the reason he escapes is he is not the biological son of Howard. That means he doesn't share their bloodline. And then it is Julia who dies next, and after the death of Julia, everyone recognizes, okay, this is a big deal and this is really happening, and therefore the next in line is Bobby. Now this is where they understand that there is a person called as JB who works at a hospital, and he knows someone who have cheated death. And surprise surprise, that JB guy is none other than the character played by Tony Todd. And again, he shares his 2 cents on how to escape death. Number one, kill someone. The person you kill, his remaining life comes back to you. That's the first thing that you can do if you want to cheat death. The second thing you can do is die yourself. Yeah, die yourself, literally die yourself, and then come back again. That means someone has to, bring you back again. So that's how you can cheat death. And of course, none of this makes sense for someone to do. But then Eric has an idea, and he grabs Bobby and literally takes him to an MRI zone. And I don't know why the security was not tight there, because it is literally a death trap, and we saw what happens in that MRI scanning machine. Eric dies. Now you might have a question, why does Eric die? Because he doesn't share the same bloodline. Well, if you mess with death, it tends to fuck you back. That's why Eric dies. But now Bob is next in the line, and Bobby eventually dies as well. And now we are in the hardcore climax of the movie. Here Darlene suggests an idea that in order for her children to live, that means Steph and Charlie to live, it is important for Darlene to survive. And in order to Darlene to survive, Darlene must definitely go in the place where her mother Iris was living for so many years without death taking her. And if you remember, Iris really lived without dying, but she only chose to die when she stepped out of her house. And this is where the idea that Darlene should really go in solitude and live at the place where Iris used to live. And then Charlie, Steph and Darlene all go to the place Iris lived, and there eventually a big accident happens. Of course, here we see Darlene sacrificing herself, Darlene dies, and now we are only left with Charlie and Stephanie. Now here Stephanie also dies, and if you remember, if you die and if you come back, it breaks the chain, and therefore everyone is kind of saved. And here Charlie thinks that Stephanie died and he brought her back to life. But of course, that is never the case, because in the subsequent scene we see Charlie's date's father tells them, and he's a doctor by the way, tells them that nah, Stephanie didn't actually die. And this is where death takes both of them. But here two very important things happen as well. Not important but interesting. The coin comes back, and the same car Paul, who was Iris's boyfriend, drove, that same car again comes back here. And another thing happens, the woodlock. The woodlock is what takes them, and the woodlock has given a generational trauma to anyone who have seen Final Destination 2. So it again comes back and kills both of them. But now let's talk about the coin thing, because I really want to talk about it. Now the coin is kind of a motif in this movie. Now what is a motif in cinema? It's a pattern or an element which reoccurs in the movie, and here the coin definitely does that. At the start of the movie we see the coin, the child who collects the coin from the water, and he's been schooled by the guard, and the guard says don't take coins from there, it's bad luck. And it literally is bad luck, because the kid probably takes the same coin and throws it off the tower, which eventually starts the cycle of the whole accident that happens at the Sky Tower. But when Iris have that premonition, Iris carefully takes that coin out of the hands of that little kid, and eventually saving the disaster from happening. And Darlene very cleverly takes that same coin and sticks that coin at the start of her book. But then at the hospital, that coin somehow gets out of that book, it falls off the book, and that coin is collected by an old lady, and that old lady is present near the accident that happened at the very climax of the movie. And that's how the coin, which was supposed to take hundreds of lives almost 50 years ago, comes back again. That same coin comes back again and takes the life of the remaining two people who were supposed to not exist all this while. And this is how beautifully they have used the coin as a motive in this video, in this movie rather, and that's why I liked it pretty much. So at the end we have the same car which Iris and Paul were driving, we have the same coin which made the accidents happen 50 years ago in the premonition, and we have a nice little Easter egg from the second Final Destination movie of the woodlock. And this is the explained of Final Destination Bloodlines movie. Do tell me in the comments what you think about this video. Do tell me in the comments if I should make more videos like this. And if you want to see my review of this movie, you can check out it right here. This is on my second channel, because I have a couple of channels more, so you can definitely check it out as well. And as always, thank you so much for watching.